For our 14.2 practice, we are going to be working on dot plots here. And this first one says that the age of campers at a summer camp is listed below for that attended camp for at least 5 years. And we're going to complete that dot plot. So here I have 13, and I'm going to put a dot on 13. Then I have 12, then 12, making sure I just get one for every single one. So you're going to go ahead and complete that dot plot. Then it wants to know the most common age of the campers. So most common, that's the one with the most dots above it. So I want to know which one has the most dots. You're going to tell me that answer. And then the next one says how many observations. An observation is a dot, so it just wants to know how many dots are there total, how many campers were there. Okay, then on D, it says what percent of campers are over the age of 14. So we're going to find all the campers that are over 14. So that means they are 15 or 16. So I'm going to look at all of the campers that are 15 and 16. So using your dot plot, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them are over 15, but it doesn't want to know how many campers, it wants the percent. So how many total were there where you just figured that out? So we have 20 total campers. So 9 out of 20 is what percent? Percents are always out of 100. Well, if we know how to get from 20 to 100, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, that was 5 times. So if I times this by 5, then I just need to times this by 5 to find that percent there. Hey, number 2 tells us that a zoo population of endangered leaf-tailed geckos, or has a population, sorry, skipped a word. Each year, the zoo records the number of eggs each female gecko lays and hatches. The data shown in the dot plot is the number of eggs hatched. So we need to understand what is a dot on here and then what is a number. So a number is an egg hatched. So the number is how many eggs were hatched. And then every time we have a dot, that's a gecko. That's a gecko that laid eggs. Okay, so what is the total number of eggs hatched in 1 year? So if you show me your work, you don't need to explain it. Your math will explain it. So this gecko laid 2 eggs. And then this gecko laid 3. And this gecko laid 3. So together they laid 6 eggs. And then this gecko laid 4. And this gecko laid 4. So together they laid 8 eggs. So I'm going to let you finish. So you can see this is a gecko. This is how many eggs it laid. 5, 10, 15. Said I was going to let you finish, and here I am doing your math for you. So I'm going to let you finish for real now. Find out how many eggs are here and here and here. And the total means we're putting them all together and adding those up. Hey, now B wants to know the total number of geckos that laid eggs, right? So a gecko was a dot. So now we're just counting up the dots. So before we wanted to know the eggs, now we want to know just how many geckos there were. So gecko is a dot, count up the dots. What is the greatest number of eggs laid and hatched by one gecko? So we're looking at the number of eggs, the biggest number of eggs. So not the most common, the greatest number. Okay, now this one says the most common. Now we're looking for the one that has the most dots. So which one has the most dots above it? E says one of the zoologists splits the data and considers the top half of the data. So we're the 8 greatest observations. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the zoologist, they don't study rocks, split the data in half. And there's 8 geckos here and there's 8 geckos here. And it wants to know what percent of the eggs is over here. So not of the geckos, right? There's 50% of the geckos over here, but how many eggs did those geckos lay? So we need to first, you should have figured out that this gecko laid 6, 12, 18, 24. So there was 24 eggs by these geckos, 7, 14, 21 by these geckos, and then just 8 by that gecko. It sounds like a funny word now that I've said gecko so many times. So here we have these geckos here, and this is how many eggs they laid. So we need to know their eggs. So we're going to add 24 plus 21 plus 8, and you're going to put that over the total, which you already found in A. Here's our total. This is how many these geckos laid out of the total, which was from A. Already did that. And I want to know what percent is that out of 100. So we're going to take this number here and times it by 100 and then divide by the total eggs to see what percent of the eggs. And these ones should have more than these ones because these ones, this gecko, even though half the geckos were here and half were here, these geckos weren't laying as many eggs. So this should be over 50% of the eggs came from these geckos there. Okay, next we have the chart shows the average daily temperature for a week in town. Which dot plot best represents the information in the table? So we can see here's the temperature every day, which is the dot plot that matches it. So right, I can see that there's a 92, there should be 192. I should have an 86, right? So just match and see which one is the correct dot plot. And number 4 says the dot plot shows the concentrations of salt in samples of seawater from around the world. So a number is the salt, and every time we have a dot, that is equaling a sample of seawater from a different place. So how many samples were taken? Well, we need to count up all the dots to see how many samples of seawater they have. So this one, we're counting the dots. Now it wants to know what fraction of the samples, so what of the total, we just found the total. So the samples is going to go on the bottom here, have a salt content greater than 38. So bigger than 38. Well, here's 39 right here. We're going to split that. So all of these dots are bigger than 38 out of how many were there total.